The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder that made grip his seat. Through the viewport, he saw it for the first time. The ancient station hung in empty space like a massive metal flower, its petals twisted and dark with age. Stars glittered behind it, cold and distant. "First time seeing a pre-council structure?" asked from the seat beside him. She had been to sites like this before, but even she seemed impressed by the size of this one. "Yes," admitted, "the pictures didn't do it justice." The station was enormous. According to the initial reports, it measured nearly 5 kilometers across. Its surface was covered in strange markings that caught the light in odd ways. No one knew who built it or when, but the Galactic Council's dating equipment suggested it was at least 10,000 years old. Maybe older. The pilot, a four-armed named, turned to address the passengers. "Docking in 15 minutes. Dr. Collies wants everyone in the main briefing room within the hour." Nodded and checked his equipment bag one more time. He had packed his portable scanner, his translation database, and enough supplies for a month-long stay. Had twice as much gear, but she always did. She believed in being prepared. They were among the last to arrive. The Galactic Council had sent its best researchers to study this discovery. Dr. Collies, the lead archaeologist, was with silver skin and a crest of bone that ran from her forehead to the back of her neck. She stood at the front of the room, tall and confident. Around her sat scientists from a dozen different species. Recognized some of them from their published work. These were the top minds in the galaxy. He and took seats near the back. A researcher named X glanced at them and clicked his mandibles. The sound was dismissive. Had learned to recognize that particular click. It meant the thought they were wasting space that could go to more qualified people. Dr. Collies began the briefing. Her voice was deep and carried authority. "Welcome to Research Station 9. This structure was discovered 3 months ago by a council survey team. Initial analysis suggests it predates any known civilization in this sector. The materials used in its construction are consistent with technology from the first expansion era, but the design matches nothing in our records." She activated a holographic display. Images of the station's interior appeared, showing long corridors covered in symbols. The symbols were arranged in neat rows and columns, clearly meant to be read, but they matched nothing in the Council's vast linguistic databases. "These markings appear throughout the structure," Dr. Collies continued. "They are not decorative. Analysis shows deliberate patterning and repetition consistent with written language. However, our translation matrices have failed to identify even basic grammatical structures. This language is completely unknown." A murmur ran through the assembled scientists. An unknown language was rare. The Council had been exploring space for thousands of years and had encountered hundreds of civilizations. Most languages shared certain universal patterns. Finding one that didn't was extraordinary. "Your assignments will be distributed after this briefing," Dr. Collies said. "Senior researchers will focus on the main symbol chambers. Junior staff will catalog and document secondary artifacts. We have much work ahead of us." After the briefing ended and received their assignments, as expected, they were put on catalog duty. They would be documenting small objects found in the station's lower levels, while the senior scientists worked on the important discoveries. Sighed as they walked to their assigned section. "Same as always. We're qualified linguists, but they treat us like interns." "We've only been with the Council for 3 years," reminded her. "Humans are still new to them. They were accepted after 2 years, and they didn't even have when they were discovered." Couldn't argue with that. Earth had been making contact with alien civilizations for nearly a decade now, but humanity's application to join the Galactic Council was still pending. Some species thought humans were too aggressive. Others thought they were too primitive. The Council was taking its time deciding. Their assigned work area was in a section of the station that had suffered damage long ago. The walls were, and some rooms were exposed to vacuum. They had to wear pressure suits to work there. The area had already been cleared as low priority. Any important artifacts would have been removed for study by senior staff. But didn't mind. He liked the quiet work of cataloging. He took his time with each object, scanning it carefully, noting its position and condition. Worked nearby, her movements efficient and practiced. They fell into a comfortable routine over the following days. Wake up, eat breakfast in the communal dining area, put on their pressure suits, and head to their section. The work was repetitive but peaceful. Sometimes they would hear updates from the main research teams over the communication channels. The senior scientists were making no progress on translating the symbols. Each day brought new frustration. Dr. Collins held daily briefings. She remained optimistic in public, but could hear the strain in her voice. This discovery was supposed to make her famous throughout the galaxy. Instead, it was becoming an embarrassment. The Council's best minds couldn't crack a simple written language. One evening, nearly 3 weeks after their arrival, was finishing up in a lower chamber. Had already gone back to get dinner. He was alone except for the soft hiss of his suit's recyclers. He moved his scanner across a section of wall that hadn't been properly documented yet. The symbols here were smaller than in other areas, almost like someone had written them in a hurry. They were also clearer, less worn by time. Scanner captured each mark in perfect detail. He was about to move on when something made him stop. He tilted his head, looking at the symbols from a different angle. There was something familiar about the shapes, not the symbols themselves, but the way they were arranged, the spacing, the proportions. He moved closer, his helmet almost touching the wall. His heart began to beat faster. It couldn't be. It was impossible. But the more he looked, the more certain he became. These weren't alien symbols at all. Switched his suit radio to private channel. Are you still in the dining area? Yes, about to eat. What's wrong? Don't eat yet. Come back to Section 7 Beta. Bring your scanner. Is something wrong with your equipment? No, just come. You need to see this. He heard her sigh, but she didn't argue. 15 minutes later, she appeared in the chamber doorway, her pressure suit reflecting the harsh work lights. This better be good, I'm starving. Pointed at the wall. Look at these symbols, really look at them. Moved closer, scanning the marks with her own equipment. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she went very still. She said slowly, tell me I'm seeing this wrong. You're not. She turned to look at him through her helmet visor. Her eyes were wide with shock. This is impossible, she whispered. I know. They stood together in the ancient chamber, staring at symbols that should not exist. Symbols that the greatest minds in the galaxy had failed to recognize. Symbols that 2 humans from Earth had identified in seconds. Because they were looking at the alphabet, written backwards. And worked through the night. They didn't tell anyone else what they had found. Not yet. They needed to be absolutely certain before they made any claims. Making a mistake would destroy their credibility, and humans already had little enough respect from the other council researchers. They started with the simplest symbols, pulled up images of Earth's various writing systems on her tablet, Roman letters, Cyrillic, Greek, even Hangul, the Korean alphabet. She placed them side by side with the alien symbols, then used her software to flip the Earth letters backwards. The matches were undeniable. Look at this one, she said, pointing to a symbol that resembled a backwards E. And this one is definitely a reversed R. This sequence here, if you flip it, it spells warning in English. Pulled up another section of wall. This section uses Cyrillic characters, and here mixed in, I see reversed Hangul. Whoever wrote this was using multiple Earth writing systems, all backwards, all combined together. But why backwards? Asked. Why not just write normally? Maybe it was a code, or maybe, paused, thinking. Maybe they were writing on something transparent, like glass or a force field. If you write on glass from one side, it appears backwards from the other side. Nodded slowly. That would make sense if this was meant to be read from the other side of something, but read by who? That was the question that kept them up all night. They took hundreds of images, cataloging every symbol they could find in their section. They cross-referenced each one against Earth's writing systems. The pattern held. Every single symbol was a reversed Earth character. By morning, they had translated several complete sentences. Most were warnings about structural damage or equipment failures. Simple maintenance logs, but one message was different. It was longer and more formal. It read, "We leave this place with heavy hearts. The war has taken everything from us. Our worlds are gone. Our people are scattered across the stars. Those who read this know that we were here. Know that humanity reached beyond Earth. Know that we will return." Stared at the translation on her screen. "Humanity," she whispered. "It says humanity." "It also mentions Earth by name," added. He felt cold despite his suit's heating system. This station was built by humans, ancient humans, thousands of years before recorded history. They looked at each other in silence. The implications were staggering. If humans had built this station 10,000 years ago, where had they gone? What had happened to them? And why did modern humanity have no memory of any of this? "We need more data," said finally. "We need to check other sections of the station, see if this pattern holds everywhere or just in our area." Over the next 2 days, they worked carefully. They couldn't access the main symbol chambers where the senior researchers were working, but they could visit other low-priority areas. They found the same reversed writing everywhere. Sometimes it was English, sometimes Russian, sometimes Korean. Occasionally they found Chinese characters or Arabic script, all reversed, all mixed together. Each section told part of a story. They found crew rosters with human names, technical manuals for equipment that was advanced even by current council standards, personal logs from people describing their lives aboard the station. One log, written by someone named, talked about missing Earth's cherry blossoms. "My grandmother used to take me to see the cherry blossoms every spring," the log read. "I close my eyes and I can still smell them. My children will never see cherry blossoms. They will never walk on Earth's soil. But I tell them stories. I teach them to write in our old languages. I want them to remember where we came from, even if we can never go back." Had to stop reading. She wiped at her eyes, forgetting she was wearing a helmet. This is someone's actual diary, someone who lived 10,000 years ago, a human. Felt the weight of it too. These weren't just symbols on a wall. They were messages from their ancestors. People who had somehow reached the stars in Earth's distant past, who had built this massive station, who had lived and worked and missed home just like anyone would. On the third day, they made their most important discovery. In a sealed compartment that had preserved its contents perfectly, they found a data core. It was crystalline and still powered by some kind of long-lasting energy cell. Scanner detected active data storage within it. "This could have records," he said. "Maybe even answers about what happened to these people." "Can we access it?" asked. "Not with our equipment. We'd need the Council's main computer systems." They looked at each other. They both knew what this meant. They would have to reveal what they had found. They couldn't keep it secret anymore. That evening, they requested a meeting with Dr. Collins. The request was unusual enough that her assistant granted it immediately. The lead archaeologist received them in her office, a small room filled with holographic displays showing different sections of the station. "This is unexpected," Dr. Collins said. Her crest was slightly raised, indicating mild curiosity. "What can I do for our human researchers?" Placed his tablet on her desk. "We've found something important. We believe we can read the symbols." Dr. Collins's crest flattened completely. It was the equivalent of intense shock. "Excuse me." The symbols throughout the station said, "They're not alien. They're human writing systems, Earth writing systems, written backwards. For a long moment, Dr. Collins just stared at them. Then she laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. That's impossible. This station is 10,000 years old. Your species barely had agriculture 10,000 years ago. We know how it sounds, said calmly. But we have proof. Look at the translations. He pulled up the images they had compiled. He showed her the reversed letters matched against Earth alphabets. He showed her the translated messages, including the one that mentioned Earth and humanity by name. Dr. Collies's laughter died away. She leaned forward, her eyes scanning the data rapidly. Were known for their quick minds. She would spot any errors immediately if they had made mistakes. But they hadn't made mistakes. This cannot be, she said finally, but her voice had changed. The disbelief was fading, replaced by something else, wonder, and perhaps a touch of fear. We need to verify this with the senior research team, Dr. Collins continued. She stood up abruptly. Come with me. Bring all your data. She led them through the station's corridors at a rapid pace. Other researchers stepped aside, surprised to see their leader moving so urgently. They reached the main symbol chamber where the senior scientists had been working for weeks without success. X was there, along with a half-dozen other top linguists from various species. They all looked up as Dr. Collins entered. I apologize for the interruption, Dr. Collins said, but these humans claim they can read the symbols. The room erupted in skeptical clicking, whistling, and other species-specific sounds of disbelief. X's mandibles clicked rapidly. With respect, Doctor, these are junior researchers. If we cannot translate the symbols with all our resources, how could they? Show them, Dr. Collins said too, and stepped forward. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. He pointed at a large symbol on the wall. That's the letter A from the Latin alphabet, written backwards. Next to it is a reversed L, then ERT. He traced the symbols with his finger. The whole sequence says alert, reactor core breach in section 9. It's a warning message, in English, Earth English. The room was completely silent now. Pulled up a different section. This one uses Korean Hangul characters. It says emergency evacuation protocols are in effect. And this one in Cyrillic is a crew roster. She turned to face the assembled scientists. The entire station is covered in human writing, our writing, from Earth. We just never saw it because nobody thought to look at it backwards. X moved closer to the wall. His multiple eyes studied the symbols intensely. Slowly, grudgingly, he clicked his mandibles in a different pattern. This one meant acceptance of truth. It's correct, he said quietly. Now that they've shown us the pattern, I can see it. These are their symbols. Dr. Collins sat down heavily. Her crest was trembling. A 10,000-year-old human station, in the depths of space. This changes everything. The news spread through the research station like fire. Within hours, every scientist knew that the mysterious symbols had been decoded. By morning, the story had reached the Galactic Council headquarters. By afternoon, news services across a dozen worlds were reporting it. Humanity had been in space before, long before, thousands of years before their current civilization had even learned to write, and found themselves at the center of a storm. Scientists who had barely acknowledged them before now sought their help constantly. Everyone wanted them to translate something. Everyone had questions they couldn't answer. Dr. Collins, to her credit, handled the situation with grace. She immediately added both humans to the senior research team and made sure their names appeared first on all official reports. She could have taken credit for the discovery herself, but she didn't. That earned her respect from and even as it caused grumbling among some of the other alien researchers. The data core they had found became the focus of intensive study. The Council's best computer specialists worked to access its contents without damaging it. It took 3 days of careful work, but finally they succeeded. The data core contained thousands of files, personnel records, ship logs, technical specifications, maps of star systems, and most importantly, a detailed history of the people who had built the station, and were asked to lead the translation effort. They worked with a team of linguists and historians, slowly piecing together the story of ancient humanity's journey to the stars. The history was stunning. According to the records, human civilization had reached an advanced state around 12,000 years ago. They had developed space travel, fusion power, and even faster-than-light engines. They had built ships and stations and colonies across multiple star systems. But they had not been alone in space. The records mentioned other species, some friendly, some hostile. The ancient humans had made contact with alien civilizations just as modern humanity was doing now. Then came the war. The records were fragmentary about what exactly happened. Different files gave different accounts, but the general story was clear. A hostile alien force had attacked human colonies without warning. World after world fell. Human fleets fought back but were overwhelmed. One file, written by a military commander named, described the final defense of a colony world. We held the orbital platforms as long as we could, but there were too many of them. I gave the order to evacuate. 50,000 people made it to the transport ships. 3 million did not. I will carry their names in my heart until I die. The war lasted decades. Slowly, humanity lost. Their colonies were destroyed or abandoned. Their fleets were scattered. The survivors fled deeper into space looking for safe refuge. This station had been one of the last major outposts. The records showed it had served as a rally point for refugee fleets. People gathered here, trying to decide what to do next. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to hide and rebuild. A few advocated returning to Earth. Earth was left untouched by the war, one record stated. Our enemy never found it, the remains safe, but those who return must leave all technology behind. Our enemy tracks advanced power signatures. If we bring our technology to Earth, we bring death with it. In the end, that was what they did. The ancient humans made the hardest choice imaginable. They stripped their ships of all advanced technology. They destroyed their weapons and their engines. They reduced themselves to a pre-technological state and returned to Earth. They scattered across the planet, blending in with the primitive human populations that still lived there. They taught their children to speak the old languages, but forbade them from recreating the lost technology. Better to live simply and survive than to shine brightly and attract the attention of the enemy that had destroyed them. One final message had been left on the station. It was recorded by a woman named, who identified herself as the last commander of the outpost. Her words were meant for future generations. To whoever finds this place, know that we did not abandon the stars lightly. We loved the freedom of space. We loved the wonder of discovering new worlds, but we loved life more. We chose survival over glory. We chose our children's future over our own pride. If you are reading this, then humanity has survived. Time has passed. Perhaps you have forgotten us. Perhaps the danger has passed. If so, then take what we have left behind. Use it well. Learn from our mistakes. And know that we never stopped believing that one day humans would return to space. Maybe you are those humans. Maybe you are the ones we hoped for. If so, welcome home. The stars have been waiting for you. Had to stop reading the translation aloud. Her voice broke. Around the conference table, even the alien researchers looked moved. The weight of history pressed down on all of them. Dr. Colley spoke into the silence. We need to verify this. The genetic records in the data core, we should compare them to modern human DNA. The Council had extensive genetic databases for all member and applicant species. Getting samples from and was simple. The comparison took only hours. The results were definitive. The ancient humans and modern humans were the same species, not similar, not related, identical, Every genetic marker matched. The people who had built this station 10,000 years ago were the direct ancestors of everyone currently living on Earth. "This explains so much," said a geneticist named Hollows. "We always wondered about humanity's unusual genetic diversity. Most species show clear signs of evolutionary bottlenecks, but humans have genetic lineages that seem impossibly old. We thought it was an anomaly in your evolutionary history, but it's not. Your species is ancient because it is ancient. These colonists merged back into Earth's population and their genes survived." More discoveries followed rapidly. Other research teams across the galaxy began reporting similar findings. Stations and outposts that had been classified as unknown origin were examined again. Many showed the same reversed human writing. Ancient human settlements existed on dozens of worlds. Some were intact, like the station they had found. Others were ruins, but all told the same story. Humanity had once spread across the stars, and then something had driven them back. The question everyone wanted answered was, what had attacked them? The records mentioned the enemy but never named them. They described massive ships and devastating weapons. They spoke of attacks that came without warning or mercy, but no specific names or identifying features were recorded. It was as if the ancient humans had deliberately avoided documenting too much about their enemy. Perhaps they feared the information itself might draw attention. One file did contain a warning. "Do not search for them, do not seek revenge. They are still out there, they may still be watching. Stay quiet, stay hidden, survive." That message had been written 10,000 years ago, but as read it aloud to the assembled researchers, he felt a chill run down his spine. What if the enemy was still out there? What if humanity's return to space had already been noticed? Dr. Collins seemed to have the same thought. "This information needs to reach the Council immediately. They need to know what we found, all of it." A formal report was compiled over the next week. It included translations of hundreds of documents, genetic analyses, and detailed archaeological findings, and wrote most of the linguistic sections, explaining how the reversed writing system worked and why it had gone unrecognized for so long. The report was transmitted to the Galactic Council headquarters with the highest priority coding. A response came back within hours. The Council wanted the senior research team to present their findings in person. A ship would arrive to collect them within 3 days. Those 3 days were busy, and prepared their presentation, rehearsing it multiple times. Dr. Collins coached them on council politics and protocol. Other researchers gathered additional evidence to support their claims. On the last night before departure, couldn't sleep. He walked through the station's corridors, his footsteps echoing in the empty passages. He ended up in the chamber where he had first recognized the backward letters. Found him there, standing before the wall of symbols. "Couldn't sleep either," she asked. "Too much on my mind." She stood beside him, both of them looking at the ancient writing. "Everything changes now. Earth's application to the Council, how other species see us, even how we see ourselves." Nodded. "We're not newcomers to space. We're returners. We've done this before." "And we failed before," said quietly. "Something out there destroyed us once. What if it happens again?" It was the question no one wanted to ask, but everyone was thinking. The ancient humans had been advanced, organized, and powerful, and they had lost. What chance did modern humanity have if the same enemy still existed? "Maybe we'll do better this time," said. "We have allies now, the Galactic Council, other species who can help us." "Maybe," agreed, but she didn't sound convinced. They stood in silence, two humans standing in a station built by their ancestors 10,000 years ago, wondering what the future would bring. The council chamber was impressive. It sat at the heart of the massive station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters, a sphere of transparent material that showed the stars beyond. Representatives from 43 different species sat in curved rows facing the central presentation area. Each wore translation devices that would render the proceedings in their native language. Had never been in a room with so much power before. He recognized faces from news reports, the High Senator, the Ambassador General, the Council Elder. These were beings who shaped policy for billions of people across hundreds of worlds. And they were all here to listen to him and explain what they had found. Dr. Collins went first, presenting the archaeological evidence. She showed images of the station, explained the dating methods they had used, and outlined the initial confusion when trying to translate the symbols. Her presentation was professional and thorough. The council members listened with polite attention. Then it was turn. He stood in the center of the chamber, acutely aware of dozens of alien eyes watching him. He activated the holographic display and began. "The symbols are human writing," he said simply. "Multiple Earth writing systems, all reversed, used together. Once we understood the pattern, translation was straightforward." He showed examples. Roman letters spelling out technical specifications, Korean Hangul describing crew procedures, Cyrillic characters documenting maintenance schedules. The evidence was undeniable. Took over for the historical section. She presented the data core's contents, explaining the rise and fall of ancient human civilization. As she spoke, the mood in the chamber shifted. The polite attention became intense focus. When she described the war and humanity's retreat to Earth, several council members leaned forward in their seats. When she translated its final message, the chamber fell completely silent. The presentation lasted 2 hours. When it ended, the council members sat in stunned silence. Finally, the Ambassador General spoke. "If this is true, it changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." "It is true," Dr. Collins said firmly. "We have every claim. The genetic evidence alone is conclusive." A representative stood, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "This discovery has significant implications for humanity's application to join the Council. If they are a returned civilization with historical territorial claims, they have rights under ancient treaties." That sparked immediate debate. Some species were supportive. Others were clearly worried about what this meant for the current political balance. Humanity had been a minor applicant, easily ignored. Now they were potentially a major power with legitimate claims to dozens of star systems. The debate continued for hours, and sat quietly, letting the council members argue among themselves. Dr. Collins had warned them this would happen. The political implications were enormous. Finally, the council called a recess, and were given quarters in the station's guest section. They had barely settled in when there was a knock at their door. It was Ambassador Minu, Earth's representative to the council. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been fighting for Earth's acceptance into the council for 5 years. "That was impressive work," he said, shaking their hands. "You've given me more leverage in one day than I've gained in 5 years of negotiations." "We just translated some symbols," said modestly. "You did much more than that. You proved that humanity belongs among the stars, that we've been here before and will be here again." Minu's expression grew serious. "But I need to ask you something important. The data core mentions an enemy, an unknown force that destroyed ancient humanity. Do we have any information about who or what they were?" Shook her head. "The records deliberately avoid specifics. It's like they were afraid even mentioning the enemy might attract attention." "That's concerning," Minu said, "because if this enemy still exists, humanity's return to space might be noticed." It was the same worry and had discussed, the fear that had kept them awake at night. "We can't hide," Minu continued. "Humanity is already in space. We have colonies, ships, stations. Whatever happened 10,000 years ago, we can't undo our presence now." "What will the council do?" asked. "That depends on tomorrow's vote, but I think we'll be accepted. The question is what comes after." The next day the council reconvened. This time they moved quickly to a vote on humanity's membership application. The result was overwhelming. 41 species voted in favor. Only 2 abstained. None voted against. Humanity was officially a member of the Galactic Council. But the Council did something unprecedented. They classified humanity as a returned civilization, with all historical rights intact. This meant that any territory humanity had claimed in ancient times was still legally theirs. Any treaties or agreements their ancestors had made were still valid. The implications were staggering. Research teams immediately began searching for more ancient human sites. Every discovery added to humanity's legitimate territorial claims. Within weeks, Earth suddenly had legal rights to 17 star systems that were currently controlled by other species. Not everyone was happy about this. The species that would have to surrender territory protested loudly. There were angry speeches in the council, diplomatic incidents, even threats of violence. But the law was clear. The ancient treaties were binding. If humanity chose to press their claims, they had every legal right to do so. Ambassador Minu handled the situation carefully. He announced that Earth would not immediately claim any occupied territories. Instead, he proposed a series of negotiations to resolve the territorial disputes peacefully. Most species accepted this compromise. A few still grumbled, but they couldn't argue with the legal precedent. Meanwhile, and continued their research. They traveled to newly discovered human sites across the galaxy, translating records and piecing together more of the ancient story. Each site added details to the picture. One site, a ruined colony on a frozen moon, contained military records. Found a partial battle report that described the enemy's ships. They move unlike anything we've seen. No visible propulsion. No energy signatures until they attack. They appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. Our sensors can't track them. Our weapons can't target them effectively. It's not a battle, it's a slaughter. Another site had civilian evacuation logs. Translated a message from a woman named who was trying to save her family. The ships came at dawn. We had no warning. My husband got the children into the evacuation craft, but there wasn't room for all of us. He told me to stay, promised he would come back for me. I'm still waiting. The colony is empty now. Everyone else is gone. I know he's not coming back, but I wait anyway because I don't know what else to do. These weren't just historical records. They were people's lives, real experiences, real terror, real loss. The more they learned about the ancient war, the more frightened became. The enemy that had destroyed ancient humanity seemed overwhelmingly powerful. Their technology was beyond anything the current Galactic Council possessed. Dr. Collins organized a classified briefing for high-level council security officials. She presented everything they knew about the ancient enemy. The room was filled with military advisors, intelligence directors, and strategic planners from multiple species. "We need to know if this threat still exists," said an admiral. "Can we find any indication of whether this enemy survived, whether they're still active?" "The ancient records suggest they were," said. "The last messages repeatedly warn against attracting their attention. That implies the threat was ongoing when ancient humanity went into hiding." 10,000 years is a long time, another advisor said. "Civilizations rise and fall. Perhaps this enemy is gone." "Perhaps," Dr. Collins agreed. "But we cannot assume that. We must prepare for the possibility that they still exist." The Council began quietly increasing military readiness. New sensor networks were deployed in deep space. Patrol routes were adjusted. Warning systems were updated, all without publicly explaining why. Most citizens of Council species noticed nothing. Life continued as normal, but those who knew the truth carried a constant worry. Somewhere out there might be an enemy that had once destroyed humanity at its height, an enemy whose weapons and ships were beyond current understanding. And humanity had just announced its return to space to the entire galaxy. one evening received a message on his personal communicator. It was from Ambassador Minu, marked urgent. Come to conference room 7 immediately. We've found something. They rushed to the conference room. Inside, they found Minu, Dr. Collies, and several council security officials gathered around a holographic display. Look at this, Minu said, pointing to the display. It showed a star map with multiple highlighted points. These are all ancient human sites we've discovered. Now watch what happens when we plot them. The display animated, drawing lines between the sites. A pattern emerged. The sites weren't random. They formed a specific shape like a barrier or boundary line. They were defending something, Dr. Colley said quietly. All these sites, they're positioned to protect a specific region of space. What region? Asked. The display zoomed out, showing a larger area of the galaxy. At the center of the defended region was a small, unremarkable yellow star. Earth's sun. They were protecting Minu said. Even as their civilization fell, they made sure Earth stayed safe. Felt his throat tighten. 10,000 years ago, his ancestors had fought and died to protect Earth, to protect humanity's future, to protect people like him who wouldn't be born for hundreds of generations. There's more, said one of the security officials. We've detected unusual sensor readings near 3 of the outer defensive sites, readings that match the descriptions in the ancient records. Everyone in the room went still. You mean, couldn't finish the sentence. We don't know for certain, but something is out there, something that moves without visible propulsion, something our sensors can barely detect. The official paused. Something that might have noticed humanity has returned. The mysterious sensor readings appeared again 3 days later, this time at a different location, closer to Council space. The pattern was clear. Something was moving inward, following the chain of ancient human defensive sites. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber that had been filled with political debate now buzzed with military urgency. Fleet commanders presented defensive options. Scientists analyzed the sensor data. Diplomats argued about whether to evacuate nearby colonies, and were called to provide expert testimony. They explained everything the ancient records said about the enemy. It wasn't much. The descriptions were vague, deliberately so, but certain facts were consistent across all accounts. They attacked without warning or communication, said. The ancient humans never understood why. There were no demands, no negotiations, just destruction. Their technology was significantly more advanced than anything humanity possessed at the time, added. And according to our analysis, ancient humanity was roughly equal to current Council technological levels, maybe even more advanced in some areas. The implications were sobering. If the enemy could overwhelm ancient humanity, they could likely overwhelm the current Council forces as well. We cannot simply wait for them to attack, said an admiral. We must take the initiative. And do what? Ambassador Minu challenged. The ancient records warned specifically against attracting attention. Every military action we take might provoke exactly the response we fear. Doing nothing is also a choice, the admiral countered, one that might cost billions of lives. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to establish defensive positions around Earth and other key worlds. Others advocated evacuating the border colonies. A few even suggested humanity should return to hiding, abandon space again to protect themselves. Dr. Colley stood and waited for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried authority. We are missing something. The ancient humans were not fools. They left these stations for a reason. They preserved their records for a reason. Perhaps we should look more carefully at what they were trying to tell us. That night, a team of researchers went back through every record they had translated. They looked for patterns, for clues, for anything that might explain what the ancient humans had understood about their enemy. Found it in a file they had dismissed earlier as technical jargon. It was a scientific report written by someone named, dated shortly before the final evacuation of the station. "I believe I understand them now," the report read. "They are not destroying us out of hatred or fear. They are maintaining balance. Every species that reaches a certain level of technological advancement attracts their attention. They come, they reduce that species to a pre-technological state, and then they leave. It's not personal, it's ecological. They are gardeners, pruning back civilizations that grow too large." The report continued with calculations and observations, had studied the enemy's attack patterns and found consistency. They targeted industrial centers, power generation facilities, and spacecraft manufacturing. They destroyed technology but avoided civilian populations when possible. They weren't trying to commit genocide. They were trying to reset civilizations. "This changes everything," Dr. Colley said when she read the translation. "If they're not trying to destroy us, just reduce our technology level, then perhaps communication is possible." "The ancient humans tried communication," pointed out. "It didn't work. Perhaps they didn't understand what they were dealing with. Now we do, or at least we understand better." The Council Security Committee studied the report carefully. A controversial plan emerged. Instead of preparing for war, they would attempt contact. They would try to communicate with the mysterious force that was approaching. Many council members opposed this plan. The delegation argued strongly for military preparedness instead. But Ambassador Minu supported the communication attempt, and enough other species agreed that the plan moved forward. A special ship was prepared. It carried no weapons, only communication equipment and a crew of diplomats and scientists. Among them were And. They had translated more ancient human records than anyone. If these beings had encountered humanity before, perhaps having humans present would help. The ship traveled to the location of the most recent sensor readings. They broadcast messages on every frequency, in every known language, including the ancient human languages from 10,000 years ago. For 3 days, there was no response. The crew waited nervously, watching their sensors for any sign of the mysterious presence. On the 4th day, something appeared. It wasn't a ship, not in any conventional sense. It was a distortion in space itself, a ripple in reality that their sensors could barely detect. It moved toward them slowly, deliberately. No threat, but no retreat either. The communication team tried every method of contact they had prepared: radio signals, laser pulses, mathematical sequences, even old-fashioned light signals. Nothing produced a response. Had an idea. She recorded a message in ancient Korean, using phrases taken directly from the records they had found. She spoke as if addressing the same beings her ancestors had encountered 10,000 years ago. "We are the children of those who left," she said in the ancient dialect. "We have returned to space as they knew we would. We understand now what you are. We seek dialogue, not conflict. Please speak with us." The distortion stopped moving. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then their communication system activated on its own. A voice emerged, speaking in ancient Korean. The accent was perfect, as if it had been recorded 10,000 years ago and preserved unchanged. "You remember," the voice said. "That is unexpected. Your ancestors agreed to forget. They chose survival over memory." "Some memory survived," replied. "Enough to help us understand. You maintain balance. You prevent civilizations from growing too powerful. We preserve the garden. We prevent imbalance. Your ancestors understood this at the end. They chose to step back willingly. We permitted them to survive because they made this choice." Felt hope rising. "We want to step back again. We'll reduce our technology, limit our expansion. Just give us time to do it peacefully." There was a long pause. When the voice spoke again, it sounded almost sad. "You do not understand. The choice was made generations ago. You cannot choose to step back now. You are too far advanced, too widespread. The garden requires pruning." Then what do we do? Asked desperately. How do we survive? Your ancestors found the answer. They left it for you. Look again at what they preserved. The distortion began to fade. The communication channel remained open, but the presence was departing. Wait, called out. What answer? What did they leave? But the presence was gone. The crew of the diplomatic ship looked at each other in confusion and fear. They had made contact, but the conversation had solved nothing. The threat remained. They returned to Council space immediately and went straight to the archives. If the ancient humans had left an answer, it had to be in the records somewhere. They searched frantically, rereading every file they had already translated. Found it in the last message from Commander, the final words left on the station. They had translated it before, but they hadn't understood its full meaning. Use what we have left behind. Learn from our mistakes. It's not just a message, realized. It's an instruction. They left us their technology, their knowledge, everything they knew. Nodded slowly. The stations aren't just memorials, they're libraries, repositories of everything ancient humanity learned. Dr. Collins understood immediately. They found a way to coexist with the gardeners. They reached some kind of accommodation, and they left the details for us to discover. Teams of researchers descended on every known ancient human site. They searched for technical files, scientific records, anything that might contain the answer. It took weeks of intensive work, but gradually a picture emerged. The ancient humans had discovered something fundamental about the mysterious beings that pruned civilizations. These gardeners didn't just maintain balance through force. They offered a different path. Species that demonstrated certain qualities, certain levels of responsibility and restraint, could be permitted to advance beyond the normal limits. The key was cooperation. No single species could satisfy the gardener's criteria, but multiple species working together, supporting each other, limiting each other's excesses, that was acceptable. That was sustainable balance. The ancient humans had been too isolated. They had expanded alone, without real allies. That made them an imbalance that required correction. But if modern humanity was part of a larger community, if they advanced alongside other species in mutual support, that changed everything. That's why they're allowing the Galactic Council to exist, Ambassador Minu said when he understood. The Council represents exactly what the gardeners want. Multiple species, working together, moderating each other's growth. And humanity's return is a test, Dr. Collins added. Will we integrate into the Council peacefully, or will we try to expand aggressively like our ancestors did? The answer seemed obvious. Humanity chose cooperation. Earth announced it would honor all existing territorial agreements. Disputed territories would be resolved through negotiation, not force. Humanity would grow, but within the framework of council law and mutual respect. 6 months after the initial discovery of the ancient station, the Galactic Council held a ceremony, and were awarded the Council's highest honors for their work. But more importantly, Earth signed the final documents making humanity a full Council member with all rights and responsibilities. As part of the ceremony, read aloud from Commander's final message. This time, everyone understood what she had truly meant. We chose survival over glory. We chose our children's future over our own pride. If you are reading this, then our choice was correct. You survived. You returned to space. Now do better than we did. Learn from our mistakes. Work with others. Build something that lasts not through force but through cooperation. The stars are waiting. We cleared the path. Now walk it wisely. The ceremony ended with the unveiling of a memorial. It would be placed at the ancient station where the discovery began. The memorial bore a simple inscription in both modern and ancient languages. To those who came before, your sacrifice preserved humanity. Your wisdom guides us still. You are not forgotten. Later that evening, and stood together on an observation deck, watching the stars. Ships from dozens of species moved past the window, each going about their business in the vast network of council space. "Do you think we'll do better than they did?" asked. "I think we have to," replied. "They gave us a second chance, we can't waste it. The gardeners are still out there, still watching. Let them watch. As long as we work together, as long as we maintain balance, they'll leave us alone. That's the deal." Smiled, who would have thought? All of this from recognizing the alphabet written backwards. Sometimes the most important discoveries start with the simplest observations. They stood in comfortable silence, two humans among the stars, carrying the legacy of ancestors who had walked this path before. The ancient stations would stand as monuments to those who had sacrificed everything to give humanity another chance. And modern humanity would prove worthy of that sacrifice by choosing a different path. Not isolation, but cooperation. Not dominance, but balance. Not empire, but community. The stars had been waiting 10,000 years for humanity to return. Now they were back, wiser and humbler than before. The garden had room for them after all, as long as they remembered the lessons written on ancient walls in backwards letters by people who loved them enough to let them forget. But they hadn't forgotten, not entirely, and now they never would.